Hello again, everyone. It's Marcus. I review stuff, and today I'm going to try something a little bit different. As I've mentioned before in the past, I don't want to just react to music videos, to music, to songs. I also want to react to albums. So still music, but I also want to react to albums, not just songs. I'm kind of an album guy. I like to listen to albums, and so I kind of had the bright idea that I really wanted to talk about one of my favorite bands of all time, Alter Bridge, and with the release of their newest album about a month ago, titled "Walk the Sky," I was like, "This is what a perfect time to talk about all the different Alter Bridge albums and why I love them, and kind of rank them from my least favorite to my most favorite Alter Bridge album." So, Alter Bridge consists of Miles Kennedy, Mark Tremonti, Scott Phillips, and Brian Marshall. They've released 6 studio albums. I'm here to talk about my least favorite to my favorite. Now, when I say least favorite, there's no Alter Bridge album that I don't like. I like every album. In fact, I love most of the albums. But I'm very passionate about this band. Went to go see them live about a month ago. And I want to do something a little bit different. So I'm here to talk about their albums. I'm ranking them. I'm going to try to do this at least once a week. Just rank albums or talk about albums, review albums, something. So as always, I take requests. If you want me to go review or listen to an album, I will be happy to do so. Please hit me up in the comments. Anyway, let's talk about Alter Bridge. So I'm going to start with my least favorite Alter Bridge album, which is The Last Hero. And by the way, I'm not counting live albums, just studio albums. So The Last Heroes is definitely my least favorite Alter Bridge album. When I saw them live about a month ago, I kind of found it odd. They actually didn't play any songs from this album in their set list. They played at least 3 to 4 songs from every other album, but not a single song from this album. And honestly, at first I was like, that's strange, but then I was like, I'm kind of okay with that, just because this is the kind of album where I didn't really feel like I needed them to play a live song. This is kind of the first Alter Bridge album where my initial reaction upon hearing it in its entirety was just kind of like, meh. It's not a bad album, because I think it still has a lot of those features that really make Alter Bridge great. But the album does have probably the most songs out of any Alter Bridge album that are just kind of automatic skips for me. There's a lot of songs in here that aren't quite as memorable or as important to me. Honestly, at times it felt like Alter Bridge is kind of phoning it in, and maybe sticking too closely to what their style is traditionally now. I feel like this is the kind of album where if someone had a vague idea of what Alter Bridge sounds like, this is the kind of album they would have made. But I don't want to just dump on this album. I still enjoy it for what it is, I guess. Honestly, songs like Poison in Your Veins, Crows on a Wire, Island of Fools, I love them for their heaviness, the chugging guitars. Mark Tremonti and Miles Kennedy put in some great work. I mean, Miles has some great vocal performances on this album, just as we've come to expect from him. The title track, The Last Hero, is honestly one of my favorites. It's one of the few from this album that is in my rotation, along with Crows on a Wire. And it serves as an epic conclusion. I think there's 3 things Alter Bridge does well when it comes to composing a record. They usually have their first song on the album is super awesome, solid, great way to get you into the album. Their title track is almost always super awesome, and then their last song on the album is always usually pretty awesome. In this case, the title track and the last song on the album are the same track. This one also starts off pretty strong with the first song, but to me overall the concept lyrically that they go with about facing our heroes and losing our heroes, I think it was a really bold concept, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really timely when it came out in 2016, but I feel like maybe the album was just a little too bloated. It was a little bit too formulaic for what Alter Bridge had become. And so, unfortunately, it kind of falls pretty low on my list. The highlights here are The Writing on the Wall, Poison in Your Veins, Crows on a Wire, Island of Fools, and The Last Hero. The album still has some pretty heavy hitters, and it's not a bad album, and I don't dislike it. It's just definitely the weakest in their catalog. Up next, my next favorite, AB3. And this might cause a little controversy, because I know a lot of people really hold this album in high regard, and I really did too. It came out around the time when I was in college, and it was like my only played album for like a year straight. I mean, I do love this album, and I would say I like The Last Hero, and I kind of double like AB3. I kind of said I loved it. I don't necessarily love AB3, but I do like it a lot. Similar to The Last Hero, this one kind of has a lot of songs that I skip. It has, to me, a lot of songs that just are not Alter Bridge's memorable songs. But I like the album because it really marks a big departure from what they had done previously. I mean, it was dark, it was heavy. Lyrically, the album explored like a nice concept of this person, this character, struggling with faith and morality in a really like dark and evil world, right? And so songs like "Slip to the Void," one of my favorites, "Isolation," and "Still Remains" have some of the heaviest and most intense guitar riffs that I think Alter Bridge has written or ever put out, really. Miles really stands out vocally on this one. I thought he was amazing vocally in the first two albums that they released, but this one, he came with a different style. I mean, it was a lot darker. He showed that he could go real low and brooding and dark, but then also hit those high notes that we're used to and really let it breathe. Songs like Breathe Again is one of their I think most underrated songs. It's a song that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, but Miles's vocals on that song are astounding. If you want a true like masterclass of singing in rock, if you want to see like why Miles is so highly regarded in rock music, go listen to Breathe Again. And on top of that, go listen to Ghost of Days Gone By. He pulls a similar like vocal range in that song as well. The guitar parts in this are amazing, as I mentioned. I like that they tried something a little bit different with Ghost of Days Gone By. The first time I ever heard that song, I was like, wow, this is kind of this is a little poppy. I don't know if I like it, but then it grew on me. I was like, Alter Bridge tried something a little bit different. It wasn't just a standard guitar-driven rock song. It was more of like a bubblegum pop song at first. I know it's kind of weird to say about an Alter Bridge song, but really liked that they did that. I also really liked Words Darker Than Their Wings. Again, that was a really, I think, experimental thing for them at the time. And it really put Mark Tremonti on vocals, and which I really, really enjoy. And listening to him now sing on his solo project, Tremonti, I'm like, to me, this is like where it all started, and I give AB3 credit for really inspiring Mark Tremonti to really take off vocally. But like I said, this album, the only reason it's not higher is I skip more songs in this album than any other Alter Bridge record except for maybe The Last Hero. It's just, it has a lot of weak songs for me. Despite that, I really enjoy it, the album overall, and it has a lot of songs that are still in my rotation today. So the highlights to check out on this one: Slip to the Void, Isolation, Ghost of Days Gone By, Still Remains, Wonderful Life, Breathe Again, and Words Darker Than the Wing. I mean, that's 7 tracks. Again, this is a solid album. I don't want to diss this album because it's a great album, and it has 7 of my favorite Alter Bridge songs of all time. But like I said, it just has, I think, a few too many songs that I don't really care for, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. My next favorite Alter Bridge album would have to be One Day Remains, and this is where it all started, honestly. So honestly, since I heard it back in 2004, I heard Open Your Eyes on the radio, and I was like, this band, I like this band already. Who is this? I went home and looked them up. It was Alter Bridge, and I was like, oh, the guys from Creed, that's cool. And then I realized, oh, but this new lead singer, he brings something totally different to this band than what we saw in Creed, and Mark Tremonti's hitting a different style here. So honestly, because it's their first album, and because I think there were remnants of Creed in this album, I think it often gets overlooked and forgotten, but to me, this is a super underrated work of rock and roll. It is truly something special. And it definitely sounds different from their other albums. They hadn't really gone dark and heavy yet. Mark Tremonti was in charge of most of the writing, and a lot of the songs were left over. Were supposed to be Creed songs before they broke up. They had a different producer. They've gone with Michael Elvis Basquiat since Blackbird, but this, I don't even know who the producer was on this album, but different producer. Mark had all the writing duties, and Miles, didn't even know he could play guitar yet, so he was just all vocals, which I think paid off for this first album, oddly enough, just because Miles' vocal performances on this song are some of his best, in my opinion. I mean, he really sings it out on this album. Songs like Find the Real, Open Your Eyes, Down to My Last, he is just on it vocally. I mean, God, if you want to hear just one of my favorite vocal performances of all time, go listen to Down to My Last. And even the guitar work, even with just Mark Tremonti shouldering the load, I mean, you listen to songs like Find the Real, as I mentioned, Open Your Eyes, or the title track, One Day Remains. I mean, those are some real awesome guitar licks. And they even get heavy in songs like Find the Real, Metalingus. Those songs get pretty heavy for what Alter Bridge was at the time. Really, really love the album. Some of the songs, especially in the back half of the album, like I think Shed My Skin, I don't know if this is on that one, or can't think of the other one. Save Me was from the Elektra soundtrack, but Shed My Skin and a couple of other songs maybe have that early 2000s cringe kind of factor to them, but overall I think the album really holds up really, really well. It might be blasphemy for some of you to put it above AB3, but really, really enjoy this one. I think the highlights here are Find the Real, One Day Remains, Open Your Eyes, Metalingus, Broken Wings, and Down to My Last. 6 of my favorite Alter Bridge songs of all time off this album. I mean, really, really solid album, like I said. Coming in, now, okay, before I show you this next one, just know that I had a lot of internal conflict on this one. I mean, really, really and truly, I almost wanted to take the easy way out and make it a tie between these next two albums, but I decided to suck it up and just put one over the other. And this may be a controversial pick for some of you, but my next album would be Alter Bridge's Blackbird. And I know, many people who are Alter Bridge fans hold Blackbird up to the highest esteem. I mean, the Blackbird is the greatest album to them of all time for Alter Bridge, and I totally get that, and I can see why people think that. I think Blackbird, One Day Remains is the first Alter Bridge album I can say I love, and Blackbird is the first album that I truly, truly love. I mean, it truly is and it almost pains me to put it at number 3, but again, this and the album after it were tied for the longest time, and I was like, no, I got to put one over the other. I can't take the easy way out. So I decided Blackbird here at number 3. It is one of their best albums of all time, if not one of the best rock albums of all time. Honestly, this was the point in their career where I think they fully realized their potential, and I think they fully realized the talent that each musician in the band had. Until this album, like I said, Mark Tremonti wrote all the pretty much everything on the first album. And Myles Kennedy was only there to provide his vocals. But I think here in this album, I know, here in this album, they realized, oh, Myles Kennedy can play guitar. Dude can write, he can play guitar. So, they presented a much heavier sound now, bringing Myles in on guitar as well. Tracks like Ties That Bind presented a much heavier sound than I think just about anything you heard in One Day Remains. Come to Life, man, that opening guitar, when they play that part live, the crowd goes wild, and for good reason. I mean, that guitar lick is absolutely one of Mark Tremonti's best. To me, White Knuckles, super heavy compared to anything you heard on One Day Remains. Honestly, the standout here, of course, is Blackbird, the title track. I mean, that is, to me, Blackbird is a masterpiece in rock music. And again, that's why it pains me to put this album at number 3, because the strength of that one song alone could almost carry it to number 1, almost for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. I mean, it is truly, truly a masterpiece in rock and roll, and just beautiful storytelling. I mean, really stop and listen to the lyrics. That blues guitar solo that Myles puts on you, and then when Mark Tremonti comes in and finishes up with his guitar part, I mean, it is rightfully considered by many to be the greatest guitar solo of all time, and I completely agree with that sentiment. So, as always, Myles shows incredible vocal range on songs like Rise Today, Watch Over You, Blackbird, as mentioned. Just an overall very solid album. I think this was truly it was their second album, but I think it was their first album to really show what the band was truly capable of. And honestly, what an album. I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And I when I saw them live last month, they played Alter Bridge. They played Blackbird. And honestly, it was like a spiritual experience for me. Like, I nearly teared up. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Like I said, that song could almost take the album to the top on its own. But highlights here for me are Ties That Bind, Come to Life, Blackbird, Watch Over You, and White Knuckles. And honestly, there are more. I like Rise Today. I love Before Tomorrow Comes. I love so many songs on this album, but I decided to pick a few, highlights. As I tell my students, you don't highlight everything on the page. You only highlight what you think is the most important. So I'm going to stick with those 5. But coming in at my second favorite Alter Bridge album of all time. Again, this might be controversial, but to me, Walk the Sky is an Alter Bridge masterpiece. And I will fully admit, my opinion about it may be partially formed by the fact that it came out recently, and I've been listening to it a bunch since it came out. So I feel like, don't get me wrong, I understand that there's always bias, and I understand that I'm susceptible to bias just as anyone else is. And so, for a long time, when this album first came out, I had Blackbird ahead of it, square, no contest. But honestly, listening to Walk the Sky more and more, I'm like, dang, this is a solid album. And I think it really shows a mature sound beyond what Blackbird did, honestly. So, thing is, though, for me, Walk the Sky had a lot to overcome. I mean, after The Last Hero, as I said, it was kind of my first Alter Bridge album. I was just like, meh. I wasn't really sure how to feel about a new Alter Bridge album this year. I mean, I was like, I was excited for The Last Hero. Last Hero disappointed for me overall. And so I wasn't really excited for Walk the Sky. I was like, I hope Alter Bridge changes it up. I hope they do something different. I hope it's not just like The Last Hero. So I was really like, I was almost ready to write this album off before I ever heard it. But honestly, after my first couple listens, this album quickly exceeded my expectations. And it honestly revived what I had always loved about Alter Bridge, and that's kind of what made me want to stop and make this video as well. Is just that love for Alter Bridge just reignited after hearing this album. The thing I love most about it, honestly, is just that they changed up their style. I think that's what was a big problem with The Last Hero, is that it was too much Alter Bridge, if that makes sense. It was too much the same style that they've always done. I think they were due for some change, and so they still have that guitar-driven sound. Don't get me wrong, and there's still a lot of on this album of what we would consider makes Alter Bridge great. But there are so many sounds that I can't ever recall hearing on an Alter Bridge record, such as the synth, like on Pay No Mind, or like the piano on Godspeed, which adds so much to those songs and adds so much to the album. It's really just a couple of small instrumental parts that they've added to their repertoire, but it makes such a huge difference. It really truly changes their style while keeping it the same. I mean, if that makes any sense to you guys. And then songs like Native Son and Indoctrination are as heavy as anything Alter Bridge has ever made. I mean, 27 seconds in Native Son when they lay on that guitar, boy, that is some heavy stuff. And Indoctrination, I love that bridge part where he's like, I'm the fool's messiah. I'm just like, damn, that's a... God, this album, man, it has still gotten me thinking about it a month later. And I honestly can't put it down. I cannot put down this album. I have not felt that way about an album in general in a long time. I certainly didn't feel that way about The Last Hero, unfortunately. And so really this revived what I love about Alter Bridge. And at the end of the day, you get two awesome, almost like... I'm looking for the word, anthem or epics, like in Dying Light and Walking on the Sky. They're grandiose in scale. They're amongst the band's like deepest cuts. I mean, I really do appreciate both of those songs. And what a way to end an album. I mean, again, I'm just gushing over this album. And honestly, one thing I did notice was that the lyrics were much more positive than maybe previous albums. Where, I mean, there's still some dark, heavy stuff in there, but I think it's looking forward for the band. I think it's looking into a more positive light. And so for me, tracks like In the Deep, huge highlight for me. That it's guitar driven. It almost makes me want to jump in my car and jump on the racetrack or something, you know. Godspeed, God, with the beautiful piano at the beginning and just the lyrical content, gorgeous song. Native Son, like I said, super heavy. I absolutely love it. Indoctrination, same thing. Walking on the Sky, you get a nice ballad there, and you do as well with Dying Light. And so Walk the Sky, huge album for me, and I'm really glad with the band's success with that album, because I love that they took a risk and it super paid off for him. So that means #1 Alter Bridge album, and honestly, you'll see, I'm going to post the Google Doc in the description below. I keep a Google Doc of all my favorite albums, and I kind of fill it out as I talk about these albums on my channel. This next Alter Bridge album, which if you know Alter Bridge, you already know what it is. It is Alter Bridge's Fortress from 2014, 2013. Yeah, this is my favorite Alter Bridge album of all time. And in fact, spoiler alert, it is my favorite album of all time. I know I'm a huge Alter Bridge fanboy. I've loved Alter Bridge since 2003, but Alter Bridge's Fortress is literally my favorite album of all time. Honestly, from the opening guitar piece by Miles, I knew this album was going to be special. Go listen to Cry of Achilles. That opening guitar part I was like, wow, this album is going to be epic, and sure enough, it was. And the thing is, they play this song live, and it's just as epic. I remember seeing them last month. It was fantastic. This was to me, this is their heaviest record, and this is their heaviest record. But they didn't sacrifice quality just for the sake of being heavy. I mean, it was heavy, and it was great. Both Miles and Mark get a chance to shine on guitar here. I mean, seeing it live, I didn't at first. I guess listening to it on the album, I didn't realize how much Miles contributed from a guitar standpoint, but seeing live how much of that guitar is actually Miles, I mean, they both get a chance to shine instrumentally and vocally, actually. One of my favorite songs is sung primarily by Mark Tremonti, but the solos on this album, I think, are some of the cleanest, some of the most intense, and they truly show two guitarists at the top of their game, honestly. I think Miles Kennedy is a super underrated guitarist. Mark Tremonti is a super underrated guitarist. Mark Tremonti is one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and is not recognized as such, I feel like. So, as always, Brian and Scott do an excellent job pacing the heavy sound. So it was pretty interesting. It was pretty amazing that they could, not only were the guitars heavy, but the drums, I think, matched. And it really shows versatility for not just the guitarists, but for Brian and Scott as well. I think they don't get enough love in Alter Bridge. Every Alter Bridge interview you see Miles and Mark. But I don't think Brian and Scott get enough credit for their role in this band and their success. I mean, they are all playing a super heavy sound. Cry of Achilles and Fortress are easily the two biggest standouts on this album. They're amazing hard rock tracks that I think stands up there with any hard rock act in the last 20 years. I mean, this, honestly, straight up. And they really show, I think this album really showed a maturity from the band. They showed that they were able to write complex songs. They were able to kind of step out of maybe a perceived comfort zone. I think it just really shows a maturity in songwriting and composition. I think really this is their best work. Pieces Broken, fantastic song. One of the heaviest songs they've ever written. And it works so well. Honestly, this is a near perfect hard rock album. Not much to dislike about this album, in my opinion. So, again, the highlights here, there are so many. But Cry of Achilles, Addicted to Pain, Pieces Broken, Waters Rising, one of my personal favorites, and then Fortress. But honestly, I love every song in this album. This is one of the few albums in my life that I've heard that I like every song. So, there you have it. That's it. That's my Alter Bridge list from my least favorite to my most favorite. Thank you so much for those of you who watched. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you go listen to the new Alter Bridge album if you haven't already. Of course, if you like this band as much as I do, go listen to their music wherever you can. If you'd like for me to review some albums or rank some albums, please let me know in the comments. I feel like I was going to say something else, but I kind of forgot. So, yeah, love Alter Bridge. I'm going to be listening to Walk the Sky for a long time. And with that being said, I'm going to go listen to it right now. You guys have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next review. Yeah, see you later. Bye.